I know that at this point in the course, you're feeling like you want to call the Falanga law because you are feeling either killed or injured. I don't know how you can actually call a law firm when you're killed, but such is the sign that we see as we travel to my in-laws in Georgia, and it makes us chuckle. And I hope that in some ways you can have a sense of humor about all that we are learning in this semester. It's a lot of information. It builds on it all. It's interweaving. It's creating a great tartan, if you will. And I hope that you will not be discouraged and certainly not call the Falanga law firm. Let's begin by again singing our 23 consonant song. Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Wow, Zion, Het, Tet, Yod, Kaf, Lamed, Mem, Nun, Samek, Ayin, Pei, Tzadei, Kof, Reis, Sin, Shin, Tau. And of course, hopefully by now you have this chart memorized. It will be on the final exam. You'll have to fill in the basic noun pattern using the word horse. So although horse doesn't appear in its frequency in the Old Testament over 500 times, you better know the word horse and its various basic noun pattern endings. Of course, the masculine singular does not have an ending. It's simply good. And the masculine plural is simply good. Feminine singular for mare or female horse, good. And feminine plural for mares or female horses, good. Okay, and then the dual form, if you were to have a sort of two-horse chariot, is that could be a nice extra credit point. So if we were to do our soft shoe song, Sus, Susim, Susa, Susot, Susayam, basic noun pattern. Sus, Susim, Susa, Susot, Susayam, basic noun pattern. Of course, you're not going to see sus, susim. You're going to see endings, right? Noun endings, whether there is none. The eem ending in the feminine, it could be a, it could be et, it could be at. It could have what we call its own feminine non-ending. And so you have to just be aware of that. And then in the plural, it could be oat. And the dual form is the iam. And make sure that you understand that in some contexts, with some certain words, they'll have trajectory or momentum from ancient forms. And so a feminine noun might have an eem plural ending, and a masculine might have an oat plural ending. You'll be aware of that in your vocabulary. But for the most part, if you know your sus, susim, susa, susot, susayam, basic noun pattern, you will do well. Of course, it'd be a good idea for you to learn the two Tommy Tutor rules. Maybe I need to figure out a faster way to say that. The two Tutor Tommy rules, the Tommy two Tutor rules. So it seems like we got to get Tommy's name in there. Tommy, of course, one of our students in the Hebrew program. The first way of recognizing that a shva is going to be a silent shva is good, short than silent. And the second rule is right. Good. When two schwas go a walkin', the second one does the talkin'. The two Tommy Tutor rules that are hopefully going to help you pronounce well consistently, help to know where the syllables are. Another way of looking at this is when a schwa is vocal, it's going to be the initial schwa, that is the schwa under the initial consonant, that it's vocal. When you have a dagesh forte in a consonant, you have the doubling of the consonant, and therefore the first schwa under the first consonant of the doubled consonants is going to be silent, closing that syllable, and the second schwa under the doubled consonant, the second of the doubled consonant, is going to be vocal. And that is because when two schwas go a walkin', the second one does the talking. And with a doubling of the consonant with the Dagesh forte, you're also going to be doubling the schwa. And the first one's going to be silent, and the second one is going to be vocal. And also just be aware that after an unaccented long vowel, you're going to also have a vocal schwa. It'll be the start of its own open syllable. Here's some rules to keep in mind. You might want to make some grammar cards on this. An accented syllable, the tone syllable, the tonic syllable, must have a full vowel. That means it cannot be reduced. It cannot be a hatef vowel. It cannot be a schwa. It's got to be a full vowel. That's your long A, I, E, O, U class vowel or your short A, E, I, O, U class vowel. It's got to be a full vowel, not a hatef vowel or a schwa. This one has been helping me a lot. It's the OUS rule. Open, unaccented syllable is never short. OUS, not short. OUS, not short. Open, unaccented syllable is never short. And then its kin, the cussing, as one person would call it, is the closed unaccented syllable must be short. Closed unaccented syllable must be short. Closed unaccented syllable, the cuss, must be short. Those two are very helpful. OUS, not short. Cuss, short. Let's turn to chapter 5. This is page 37. We're going to learn two things in chapter 5. It would be nice if it was sort of straightforward, but we're going to learn a lot of variations. Don't get disconcerted with the variations. There are enough patterns, and I will give you a summary slide that will help you move through Pratico and Van Pelt's discussion on the definite article and the conjunction wow. We have in Hebrew a definite article, but we do not have an indefinite article like in English with a or an. Rather, just the noun itself, such as Melech, is going to be indefinite. It could mean king or an unspecified king, a king. With the definite article, it becomes specified. It becomes a particular king, the king. Please also note that proper nouns in Hebrew are considered definite just by definition. Proper nouns are considered definite. And also, as we will learn, nouns with possessive pronouns, what we call pronominal suffixes. We'll learn that in a later chapter. Possessive pronouns like your book or his sword, those are definite as well, just by definition, because you're talking about a specific book or a specific sword. Your book, his sword. Those are specific, so those are considered definite as well. So the definite article presence makes a noun definite. Also, proper nouns are definite, and then nouns that have a possessive pronoun suffix or pronominal suffix attached to them. Let's enter into chapter 5. Here is the definite article attached to Melech. Remember, Melech is a segulate noun. Why is it segulate noun? Not simply because it has the segol vowels there, but rather because its accent with that hash mark, its accent is on the penult. Its tone syllable is the penult, the second to last syllable on the mem segol symbol. So Melech, mem with the segol as the first syllable, and then the closed syllable, lamed, segol, final form kaf with the silent schwa. Melech. Now we add the definite article. It's a hey with a patak and a dagesh forte. Why is that not a dagesh lina? Correct, because mem is a non-bagad kapat letter, it cannot take a dagesh lina. Therefore, the dagesh in the mem, which is part of the definite article, is a dagesh forte. If we were to pronounce this out, it would be ham melech. Ham melech. Got to get that patak. Ham melech. So hey with the patak followed by a mem, closed syllable, consonant, vowel, consonant, followed by an open syllable, mem with a segol. Remember the Dagesh forte is a doubling of that consonant. Two mems are there. Followed by the last syllable, which is a closed syllable, lamed, segol, final form kaf, with the silent shva that's usually attached to a final form kaf. Hamelech, Hamelech, Hamelech. In the vocab, it's listed, the definite article, meaning the, appearing over 24,000 times, is a hey with a patak followed by a Dagesh forte. Put this as a grammar card. So indefinite, melech, becomes definite, Hamelech, Hamelech, the king. We can see it in other examples as they give there the indefinite noun for an altar, mitzbeach, mitzbeach. But when we add the definite article, we have the Dagesh forte in the mem, therefore it's ham mitzbeach, ham mitzbeach, ham mitzbeach, the altar. Sus, a horse or horse. When we add the definite article, again the Dagesh forte in the first samic. So has, sus, hasus, 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 the horse. With a place, makom, makom, if we wanted to say the place, again we add the hey with the patak, Dagesh forte in the next consonant, which would be the mem. Ham, makom, hamakom, hamakom, the place. Lave, a heart, lamed with the tsere, bait, lave. If we were going to add the definite article, hey, with the patak, the Dagesh forte and the lamed, doubling the lamed. So halave, 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 halave. Let's look at our blackboard for the definite article just to show the various components. We use the word sus, horse, a horse, without the definite article, unspecified horse, sus. When we add the definite article, the hey with the patak, with the Dagesh forte in the samic, the doubling of that samic, so hasus, 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 hasus. Now, it would be wonderful if it was that easy, but we do have some variations. For example, what happens when the definite article is attached to a Bagad consonant? What is that? What's the issue here? Well, in a Bagad consonant, that's the initial consonant of the word, it's going to have a Dagesh lina. Bayit, bayit, derek, derek, Torah, Torah. So what are we going to do? There's a Dagesh lina, and we've got a definite article, which has a hey with a patak and a Dagesh forte. Well, the Dagesh lina just becomes a Dagesh forte, a doubling of the hard sound. Notice in our inserted box, the Dagesh forte doubles the consonant. A Dagesh forte in a samic means you have two samics there, correct? Okay, so if we were to have bayit, a house, the bait has a Dagesh lina because it's the initial consonant. Bayit, when we add the definite article, the hey with the patak and the Dagesh forte, we have a doubling of the bait, of the hard sound of the bait. Hab, bayit, habayit, habayit, the house. How about for a road, an unspecific road? Derek, derek. The dalet with the Dagesh lina and the segol, and the next syllable is erased with the segol. Final form kaf, silent shva. Derek, when we add the definite article, hey, with the patak and the Dagesh forte, the Dagesh lina in the dalet becomes a Dagesh forte, the doubling of the dalet. Therefore, had, derek, had derek, had derek, had derek. Notice the doubling of the dalet because of the Dagesh forte replacing the Dagesh lina in the Bagad Kapat letter. This is keeping, as you see in inserted box number 2, the closed unaccented syllable must be short. So a patak is a short A-class vowel, so you have to have a closed unaccented syllable to keep that rule consistent. Let's look at Torah. Torah, the Dagesh Lina in the Tau becomes a Dagesh Forte when you add the definite article, hey, with the patak, followed by a Dagesh Forte. So the doubling of the Tau, hat Torah, hat Torah, hat Torah, hat Torah. Now, you have learned your guttural rules. Remember that the guttural gang are the four guttural consonants, aleph, hey, chet, ayin, plus young little resh nada gesh, resh nada gesh. Those of you who know your Espanol know that nada means nothing. So just a reminder that it's not going to take the Dagesh Forte. It rejects the Dagesh Forte. And therefore, with the guttural gang, the resh also has that aspect to it. So if you look over to the other side, to the inserted box, the rules for the gutturals, gutturals plus resh not a gesh, cannot take Dagesh Forte. They reject the Dagesh Forte. Also, the other guttural rules, remember that the gutturals take reduced vowels, that's hatef vowels, rather than shva, that's silent shva, but they also can, sorry, that the vocal shva, gutturals take reduced vowels, the hatef vowels, rather than vocal shva, and gutturals prefer to live in A-class neighborhoods. They like the A-class vowels. So what happens when you try to put a Dagesh Forte into a guttural? It rejects the Dagesh Forte, and we see something called compensatory lengthening with the initial gutturals of aleph, ayin, and resh. What happens here? Well, the expected patak under the definite article, hey with a patak, lengthens to a comet. It's called compensatory lengthening. It goes from a short A class to a long A class, as we see with a hey with the comets. Let's take a look at the example so we can put this into our mind. Ish, a man, unspecified man, ish. When we add the definite article, hey with the patak followed by a Dagesh Forte, the Dagesh Forte is rejected by the aleph as a guttural letter, and therefore there's compensatory lengthening. The patak expected under the hey becomes a comet. Ha-ish, ha-ish, sorry, to get the as in father. Ha-ish, 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 compensatory lengthening. Let's look at isha, isha, an unspecified woman, a woman, woman. Isha begins with the guttural letter aleph. We attach to it the definite article, hey, with the expected patak Dagesh Forte. The Dagesh Forte is rejected by the initial consonant of the guttural, and therefore we have compensatory lengthening where the expected patak becomes the comets. Ha-isha, 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 the woman. We can see this in other classes of vowels. For example, rosh, a head, rosh, unspecified head, rosh, top, chief, right? We want to put a definite article attached to it. So what we have here is the rejection of the Dagesh Forte by resh nada gesh, right? The resh in this aspect rejects the Dagesh Forte. So we have compensatory lengthening where the patak becomes the comets. Ha rosh, ha rosh, ha rosh. Good. Last, let's look at ear. That's that ayin, hirak, yod, resh, a city. Ayin is a guttural letter. It's going to reject the Dagesh Forte of the definite article, and therefore the patak is going to have compensatory lengthening and become a comet. Ha'ir, ha'ir. If you look down at footnote number 1 on page 38, this is one of the reasons why I highlighted that it's a good idea to be able to understand both the 5-class A, E, I, O, U, as well as the 3-class A, I, U vowel chart. Because when it comes to compensatory lengthening, you see the compensatory lengthening occurring within the 3-class. So the A class, the I class, which is E and I, and the U class, which is O and U. So just be very aware of that. And as they tell us in the footnote, patak lengthens to comment, short a becomes long a. Hirek lengthens to itsere, so staying within the 3-class I class, the short I class becomes a long E class, but staying within the larger class. And then the kibbutz lengthens to a holum, staying within the larger U class, where the short U becomes a long O. So the kibbutz lengthening to a holum. Compensatory lengthening. This is what is occurring. My friends and I gather now once a month. These are my high school friends, so we're looking back 30 plus years. And this last time that we met, you see some compensatory lengthening. All of them grew beards over December, January. Just not me. Okay, so I need some compensatory lengthening. Hopefully that will be a way of solidifying this technical term, compensatory lengthening, in your mind. Compensatory lengthening is difficult, but virtual doubling can drive you virtually crazy. So with compensatory lengthening, we see it with aleph, ayin, and resh. With virtual doubling, we see it with the guttural letters hey and chet. When they are the first consonant, the initial consonant of a noun, they reject the dagesh forte, and yet we do not see compensatory lengthening. They keep the short A class vowel. Now, why do we need virtual doubling? Well, because of our 7 vowel transformation rules, particularly number 2. An open, unaccented syllable is never short. And yet, with the dagesh forte being rejected, and there's no compensatory lengthening, the patak is short. So how can that be a continuation or consistent with the rule that an open, unaccented syllable is never short? Well, virtual doubling steps in. It's sort of like virtual reality, or what we used to call virtual meetings back in 2020 when everybody was gathering online. Virtual church. The idea is, although we do not see the doubling of the consonant, the guttural consonant hey or chet, it's there to maintain consistency with the OUS is never short. So let's take a look at the examples. First example is heichal, heichal, hey with a tzere yod. Next syllable is a kaf without a dagesh lina, kametz lamed. Heichal, a palace or a temple. If we want to make it definite, particularize it, then we add the hey with the patak and the dagesh forte, but the hey of the noun rejects the dagesh forte, and therefore we do not have compensatory lengthening, we have virtual doubling. In a sense, we have this virtual hey that's there to maintain consistency with the OUS is never short. So hey with the short A class vowel followed by a virtual hey as the first syllable. And then the next syllable is hey with the tzere yod, followed by the next syllable, which is a kaf without the dagesh lina, kametz lamed. Ha heichal, ha heichal, ha heichal, ha heichal, ha heichal, the palace, the temple. We can also see this with the holam wow, right? A chet with a holam wow, first syllable. The next syllable is mem with a kametz hey. So choma, 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 a wall. When we make it definite, the hey with the patak and the dagesh forte, but the chet as a guttural letter rejects the dagesh forte. But to maintain consistency with vowel transformation rule number 2, that OUS, open unaccented syllable, is never short, we have a virtual chet there. So virtually for the first syllable, we have hey with the patak followed by a chet, a virtual chet. And then the next syllable is a chet, holam wow. And then the next syllable is a mem with a kametz hey. Ha-choma, ha-choma, ha-choma. And if it helps you with utterance, you can kind of put in that virtual to just allow you to pronounce more consistently and keep the rule in your mind for virtual doubling. Again, as they say, note how the hey and the chet reject the dagesh forte, the patak does not lengthen, and therefore what we have here instead is virtual doubling to uphold vowel transformation rule number 7, which is that an open, unaccented syllable is never short. And so it must be a closed syllable, must be consonant, vowel, consonant. That is the hey with the short A-class vowel with the virtually doubled guttural letter hey or chet. Just to highlight vowel transformation, just to put another image in your mind for virtual doubling, it occurs for the hey and the chet, right? My daughter unfortunately had to deal with my hair design. I did not know how to use all those rubber bands, but here she is in the mirror. Think of it as the virtual is a mirroring, if you will, of the guttural letter hey or the guttural letter chet. In order to maintain the closed, unaccented syllable must be short. That's the cussing, and virtual doubling can cause you to cuss. We also see virtual doubling with irregular segal vowels. This is the appearance of the hey as a definite article with a segel rather than the patak and no dagash forte. The hey with a segel with no dagash forte. This is before nouns that begin with an unaccented hey with the comets or a chet with the comets or an ayin with the comets. The chet with the comets could also be accented. So let's take a look at chacham. Chacham, that's a chet with the comets, and the next syllable is a kaf without the dagash lina. Comets, final form mem, two-syllable word. Chacham, chacham. And to make it definite, because it's bumping up against the chet with the comets, we have the appearance of a hey with the segel, he chacham, he chacham, he chacham. And again, there's a virtual doubling there because segel is a short E-class vowel. He chacham, he chacham, he chacham. That really gets your guttural going in the morning. He chacham. So if you want to be a wise man, you got to be able to really guttural it out. We might also see that with the collective noun anan, anan, right? So the ayin with the comets. So here we also see again the hey with the segel. He anan, he anan, he anan. So for the cloud, this is with irregular segel vowels appearing uh, underneath the definite article for the hey. So hey with the segel, no dagash forte. What happens when you have the definite article attached to a word that begins with either a yod with a vocal schwa or a mem with a vocal schwa? Well, it's called the mysterious disappearing dagash. Take a look at our examples. Here you have boys, yod with a vocal schwa. Why is that a vocal schwa? Because it's under the initial consonant. You can't have it be silent. So y. Then you have a next syllable, lamed, comets, la. And then you have the final syllable as a closed syllable, consonant, vowel, consonant. Dalet here at yod, final form mem. Yeladim, yeladim, yeladim. Hopefully you notice the plural, masculine plural, ending from sus, susim. So we add the definite article. The expectation is a hey with a patak and a dagash forte, and yet there is no dagash forte in the yod. Well, the yod has a vocal shva, hayeladim, hayeladim, hayeladim. We sort of have to pronounce that doubled yod as though there is a dagash forte, and this is often called the rule of skinum leeway, skinum leeway. I like to think of it as the squirrely rule, very squirrely. What is skinum leeway? Well, it helps explain the disappearing dagash or the spooky, mysterious disappearing dagash. With sibilant consonants, those are consonants that have a s sound to them, consonants that have a sound to them, like Samic, Tsade, sin or shin, and also with Kof, Nun, Mem, Lamed, Wow, Yod, or if we were to follow the consonant pattern, it'd be Yod, Wow, Lamed, Mem, Nun, Kof. With those consonants or with those sibilants, the S consonants, when it has a vocal schwa, you will frequently have the Dagvesh forte drop out. Oh, it's squirrely. Skinum lewy. That's how we remember those consonants. The sibilants, skinum lewy. Of course, the kinum lewy follows the kof, nun, mem, lamed, wow, yod. So here you can kind of work through the consonants to have the sound kinum lewy. Skinum lewy. So it's like skinning a squirrel, if you will. Lewy, the squirrel, is getting skinned. And if you need to have some type of profanity in your ministry, or at least in finishing out your seminary semester, you might need to just say, oh, skin 'em Levi, skin 'em Levi. That sometimes the Dagesh frequently will drop out the spooky, mysterious, disappearing Dagesh as expected, but it's just not there. There are other nouns that have different forms with the definite article. These you probably want to put in your vocab. So you know the seglet noun eretz. The seglet noun eretz, when you add the definite article, we have the appearance of the hey with the comets, but then a change in the segel under the aleph to a comets as well. Haaretz, haaretz, haaretz. Remember, this is a seglet noun. Same with people. Aim, aim. That's ayin, patak, final form mem. When we add the definite article, it's ha'am, ha'am, ha'am. Hey with the comets, ayin with the comets, final form mem. The people. Same with gan. Gan becomes hagan, hagan, hagan. Sorry, I'm still having old Hebrew from 50, 20 years ago coming back into my mind. Um, Hagan, Hagan. Sometimes I hear verses that I've studied from long ago and their pronunciation. How about Her, mountain? Her. If we were to add the definite article, it becomes Hahar, Hahar, the mountain. And then for ark, notice the reduced Hatef, Patak vowel. Aron, Aron. That's a aleph with a hatef patak, resh, holam wow, final form noon, ark. Ha'aron, ha'aron. Again, these are something you need to learn as part of vocabulary, and they'll be pointed out in the vocabulary list, and you just put it on your vocabulary cards. You'll become familiar with it as you start to see it. Now maybe you're understanding why learning your vocabulary is so important. And doing grammar cards is also so important. So this is what I did for my grammar card 20 years ago to help me learn the rules of the definite article, the hey with the patak and the dagesh forte, or sometimes you see it as a hey with the comets, sometimes just a hey with a patak, a doubling by implication as it used to be called, or hey with the segol before the chet with the comets, or the unaccented hey with the comets, or ayin with the comets. You make your own grammar card and you review it, and it will help. If you want, you can make a grammar card out of this chart. This chart basically shows the patterns again with melek or zakein, the simple pattern of just adding the hey with the patak and the dagesh forte. So ha-melek, ha-melek, or ha-zakain, ha-zakain, the elder, with Bagad Kafat letters, as we've seen, Bayit, the Dagesh Lina, in the Bagad Kapat consonant at the initial consonant of the noun becomes a dagesh forte, so habayit, habayit, and same with derek, had derek, had derek, or before ayin, aleph, and resh, you have compensatory lengthening, so ish with the compensatory lengthening because the aleph rejects the dagesh forte, so the patak that we expect becomes a comet. It becomes ha'ish, ha'ish. Same with rosh. The expected patak becomes a comet because of compensatory lengthening, because the resh rejects the dagesh forte of the definite article, so harosh. And same with ear, with the ayin as a guttural letter, rejecting the dagesh forte, and so the expected patak due to compensatory lengthening becomes a comet, ha'ir. We have virtual doubling when it is with the hey or chet, like choma, choma. The virtual doubling, there's a virtual second guttural letter there to help maintain that a closed unaccented syllable is short. So chachoma, chachoma, chachoma. It's virtually there to keep the rule consistent, and ultimately it's there to aid in pronunciation. So chachoma, chachoma. And sometimes before an unaccented ayin with the comets or hey with the comets, and always before a chet with the comets, you'll see the hey with the segol. Hey chacham, hey chacham, hey afar, hey afar. And then irregular vowel changes in the article and or in the noun. So eretz, that segolet noun, becoming haaretz. Her, mountain, becoming hahar, the mountain. Aim, becoming ha'am, the people. And lastly, as we saw with the skinum liwai, before a yod with the vocal shva, you'll have the mysterious disappearing dagesh due to skinum liwai. So yesharim, yesharim, the upright ones or righteous ones, yesharim becomes ha-yesharim, ha-yesharim, ha-yesharim. Hayesharim, that's the mysterious disappearing dagesh. Other functions of the definite article, besides simply what we would gloss in English as the, is that the definite article can act as a demonstrative adjective, near or far, basically in English saying this one or that one. Context will help you to determine that. Vocative use, particularly in dialogue, direct discourse, where you might be um, calling on somebody and saying, oh, David, oh, Samuel. Superlative use where it's heightening or bringing out the best or the most of what it's connected to as a definite article. And then it can also simply be acting as a possessive pronoun, so a possessive use. So on page 44, we have examples of this, the demonstrative adjective. We're going to focus right here on this word, hayom, hayom, so that we have the hey with the patak followed by the yod. Notice the dagesh forte in the yod. You hopefully know your vocabulary. Yom, the yod with the holem wow, final form mem. And so here, the definite article is acting as a demonstrative adjective. And so even though if we were to just read this literally being the day, it actually comes out as this day, and context will help you determine that. Same with the vocative use here. We have, again, our word that we've been using a lot for this lecture. Melech, Melech, notice the definite article on that, the hey with the patak, and the final form, the dagesh forte in the mem, the doubling of the mem. So Hamelech, Hamelech. And so here we have the person calling out and saying, O king. Literally again, the king, but the vocative use, O king. And then on page 45, we can see the definite article used with adjectives. Tov, we haven't learned that vocabulary word. Tov means good. We see it also here, another definite article on yashar, another word we haven't learned yet, but the idea behind it in the back of your mind is that the definite article can use to heighten or become the superlative. So hatov, notice the hey with the patak followed by the dagesh forte in the tet, hatov, meaning the good into the best, making it the best. Same with the definite article attached here with a conjunction that we'll learn in the next part of this lecture segment. So the hey with the doubling of the yod, and so that's bringing it to the superlative the most. And lastly, at some occasions, depending on context, where you'll have the definite article here referring to being a possessive pronoun. So the harp becomes his harp. Lastly, just again to complete our information and understanding about definiteness and indefiniteness, is sometimes with the indefinite article, you're going to have words like echad, or ata, achat. Both of them mean one, the one in the grammatical gender of masculine, the other in the feminine grammatical gender of feminine, attached to words to kind of give somewhat more specific, but not as specific as a definite article. So ish echad means one man or a certain man. And then isha echat can refer to a certain woman. We see this sometimes in parables. So there is somebody, but it's not quite yet definite. We'll see this in the book of Ruth, where we have an ish echad introduced, and then later he is given the name Elimelech. It's just the expansion of the narrative, just beautiful artistry to keep introducing us further and further into the narrative to help us actually participate in the narrative, vicariously identify ultimately with some of the tragedies that occur in the first chapter, and then some of the strange conflicts that occur in the second chapter and third chapter. And then we get to participate in the rejoicing of the fourth chapter. So those of you who know the book of Ruth just see some beautiful artistry using the Hebrew language. And if you take Hebrew 3 with me, you'll get a chance to just walk through that and see it. Our next section of this segment is to look at the conjunction while. We'll have similar issues that we saw with the definite article, but for the preliminary perspective, here we have ish with the conjunction wow. That's a wow with a vocal schwa. A wow with a vocal schwa. So this is called a conjunction wow. On page 40, you get a breakdown of what we see about 50% of the time, which is just the conjunction wow being a wow with a vocal schwa. Before most consonants, we're going to see this. So, w isha, w isha, w isha, w isha. And a woman, you can also attach it to a definite article. Let's just walk through that. This will be a good example of reinforcing what we just learned. So a wow with a vocal schwa followed by a hey with a comets. Why is it a comets as a definite article? Because the dagesh forte of the definite article has been rejected by the guttural letter aleph, and therefore we have compensatory lengthening. The expected patak lengthens in its class, a class, to a comets. So w ha isha, w ha isha, w ha isha, w ha isha. We see this also with ish, w ish, and a man. And then if we had it definite with the definite article, same thing, compensatory lengthening at work here. Wahaish, wahaish. If you look in your vocab on page 44, they have the conjunction while. There are several glosses, and, but, also, even, then, over 50,000 times, but not all 50,000 of them are going to simply be assensive and. They may be contrastive, but. They may be additive also, even. They may be temporal then. It takes context This is the nuance of interpreting well and communicating into the target language, Hebrew. So in English, don't simply say that wow is, the conjunction wow is and. Look at the context. You'll see contrastive elements in the sentence, and therefore it tells you, oh, I need to translate this conjunction as a but, or I can see it's adding information, and so I translate it as also even. So context, context, context. Now, sometimes you're not going to see the wow with the vocal schwa. At some points, you're going to see it as a shurek. This is actually an exception to our rules that we learned. It's the one exception to the consonant vowel consonant, that's a closed syllable, and consonant vowel, that's an open syllable, because here the shurek can be the opening or initial of a word. And so it would actually be a vowel consonant, a vowel consonant, vowel consonant. So just be aware that this is the one place we see a breaking of the consonant vowel consonant, closed syllable, or consonant vowel open syllable with a shurek. And it occurs in two circumstances. The first is with labials, labial consonants. Those are, if you would, put your finger to your lips and go. These are consonants that are produced in part by lip function, labial function. So bait, mem, and pay. Just by saying those, you can see your lips are moving. Bait, mem, and pay. And when that happens, when the conjunction wow bumps up against a bait, mem, pay, the labial consonants, we have the bump rule. So the conjunction wow becomes a shurek. A shurek. Again, we call this the bump rule. Bait, mem, pay. It's a nice way of remembering those consonants. Bump. Bait, mem, pay. So bane, bane, son, or between, sorry, preposition between, and you add the conjunction wow plus the schwa, vocal schwa, it bumps up against the bait and it becomes a shurek. So uvain, uvain. Notice that the dagesh lina goes away because it's connected with a vowel. So uvain, uvain. Same with something like melek when we add the conjunction wow to melek, melek. The mem is bump, right? So bumps up against and it becomes a shurek, umelek, umelek, and a king. Same with paro, paro. We have the conjunction attaches to it. The pay is part of the bump, so it becomes a shurek. So uparo, uparo, uparo. And to bring out the patak, uparo, uparo, uparo. The other times that the conjunction wow is spelled as a shurek is when you are attaching it to a word that has a vocal schwa. Why is that an issue? Because remember our two Tommy Tudor rules, which is short and silent, and then when two schwas go a walking, the second one does the talking. Well, which one is going to do the talking? If the first one is under the initial consonant, it's got to do the talking because it's under the initial consonant. Well, then what happens to the second one? So again, when two schwas go a walking and the second one does the talking, and so that maintains consistency in this because the wow with the vocal schwa turns into a shurek. So ne'arim, ne'arim, ne'arim plus the conjunction wow becomes ne'arim, 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 and young men, ne'arim. Same with Sepharim, Sepharim, books. We want to say and books. We add the conjunction wow. And again, the conjunction wow attaching to a consonant that already has a vocal schwa, it becomes Usefarim, 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 Usefarim. And we see that as well with the name of Samuel, Ushamuel, Ushamuel, Ushemuel. Ushemuel. We do have an exception to this rule. We actually had this as additional information in chapter 4, where when you have the two shvas attaching to each other, that sometimes they will combine and create a hirek yod. So Yehuda, Yehuda plus the conjunction wow becomes Yehuda, Ye, we Huda, we Huda, we Huda. The wow with the hirek yod, we plus hu da, we Huda, we Huda. Let me remind you of what we saw back in chapter 4. We went through this quite quickly. They call it the first rule of Shva as additional information. We really need to learn a better way of approaching this. But the idea behind this is when you have two Shvas that are both vocal and the combination occurs, well, according to the two Tommy Tudor rule, right? Short and silent, and then the second one is when two schwas go a walking, the second one does the talking. Well, how do you have that when two vocal schwas are combined? Well, sometimes you'll see that the first schwa becomes a hirek. And so here's a good way of just thinking of it, like with a lamed preposition, the lamed um, expected to have a vocal schwa, but when it attaches to a noun that begins with a consonant that has a vocal schwa, then the first schwa becomes a hirek. But the exception, as Pratico and Van Pelt will describe it, again, this is chapter 4, page 35, is when you are attached to certain words, like we saw with Yehuda, Yehuda. And so whether it's a conjunction wow or in this case the preposition with the vocal schwa, the l, instead of having it as two schwas, because you can't have two schwas together because again the two Tommy Tudor rule, right? Short and silent, and then when two schwas go a walking, the second one does the talking. So we have the schwas combine to become a hirek yod, in this case lihuda, lihuda, lihuda. So we're looking back at chapter 4. We're going to see this occur several times over the next hour or so as we continue on in this lecture. And I will try my best to highlight it. So this is a good visual of it. On page 41, we learned that if you combine the conjunction wow with a guttural letter that has a reduced or hatef vowel, that's hatef patak, hatef segel, hatef komets, that the conjunction is going to take on the corresponding short vowel of the next hatef vowel. This is what I like to call the I like your tie. This is when the preacher wears the $2,000 suit and has the matching tie and the handkerchief. So the wow likes to wear the tie of the handkerchief of the noun. So for example, let's look at the first one, anashim. Anashim. There you have a guttural letter aleph with the hatef patak, with the noon with the comets, and then the shin with the hirek yod final form mem. Hopefully you recognize the plural form them of sus, susim. Of course, this is the irregular, as we might say. Really what it is an older form that has momentum. So this is the plural of ish and the appearance of that older form with the nun. So anashim, anashim, when combined with the conjunction wow, it takes on the corresponding short vowel of the hatef. What we have here, of course, is some virtual doubling occurring because we want to maintain the consistency of a closed unaccented syllable is short. So the wow takes on the patak of the corresponding short vowel within the hatef patak. Wa anashim or wa anashim, wa anashim, wa anashim, wa anashim. Same with the next word, which is emet. Emet, we have the aleph with the hatef segel underneath the aleph, which is a hatef or reduced vowel with the conjunction attached to it. The conjunction takes on the corresponding short vowel of the hatef, segel, which would be the segel underneath the wow. And again, we have some virtual doubling occurring here. So it's we emet, we emet, we emet, we emet, we emet. And likewise, when we have the word ahli, 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 sickness, ahli, ahli, when we combine it with the conjunction, it takes on the corresponding vowel, again, virtual doubling, and here is a hali, 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 and this just helps us to maintain the ease of utterance as we're pronouncing these. So this is before reduced vowels, or what we would call a hatef vowel. The conjunction takes on the corresponding short vowel of that hatef vowel. Of course, I want you to note on page 35, the second rule of schwa, as Pratico and Van Pelt call it. Vocal schwa cannot precede a guttural with a reduced vowel. This is highlighting what we just learned in the last slide, and with the I like your tie aspect. So even with not just conjunctions, but with prepositions, as we'll see in the next section, the sound corresponding, so the sound of the short vowel, so ba-ha-lom, bahalom, bahalom, in a dream. There's the preposition. So good for you to go back and just review that. It was additional information, but as we see, it ends up becoming important information for us understanding when we have the combining of either the definite article or the conjunction wow, or as we're learning in the next chapter, prepositions. And just to highlight, as Pratico and Van Pelt call it, the exception to the second rule of schwa, this is when you have a preposition or even the conjunction wow attached to Elohim, in this case singular, right? Divine plural acting as a singular, God with a capital G, God with a capital G, right? One God, and you want to add a conjunction wow, or in the page 35 inserted box a preposition, you have the schwa become a tsere. So with the conjunction it would be we lohim, and then we'll see in the next chapter, you'll see it appear as lelohim. So it's just with Elohim, something to be aware of. Sometimes before monosyllabic words, you're going to have appearance of a comets underneath the wow. So for zone, monosyllabic, when you want to attach the conjunction wow, it becomes a comets rather than a vocal schwa. So wazone, wazone, watzone. Try to get that sade. Watzone, watzone. And sheep. Lechem, lechem becomes walechem, walechem. The comets appears under the wow. And bread. Notice their last sentence in that paragraph. This spelling convention is not always followed. Kind of brings a sad face. But that's the reality with language. Language is got all the wonderful nuances of life, and we can't simply categorize it away. It's not a code, it's language. So to make things easier, I'll send you this slide. This is a nice summary of what we've just gone through. You can kind of put it as a grammar card, copy and paste it, cut it out off of paper that you've printed, and stick it onto your index card. A nice review. So the most common form of the conjunction wow is wow with the vocal schwa. But before labial consonants, the bump rule, bait, mem, pay, you have it appear as a shurek, uvayit, that's the no dagesh lina there, uvayit, And then you have before a vocal schwa also the appearance of the conjunction as a shurek, udevarim, udevarim, udevarim. And then you have before yod with a vocal schwa, it becomes a hirek yod, Yehuda, Wehuda. And then before gutturals with a composite shva, the I like your tie, you like to match the tie with the handkerchief, takes on the corresponding sound of the short vowel of the hatef, so it could be a patak, segel, a kametz hatuf. Uh, and so there is, in a sense, there some virtual doubling going on as well. So wa ani, wa ani, wa ani. And then before the accented syllable, sometimes a wow with a comets, a wow with a comets. Wa leila, wa leila. And then lastly, again, as we mentioned with Elohim, Elohim, that divine plural, often referring to singular God, capital letter G, it will appear as a wow with a tsere, Welohim, Welohim. This is a good slide to just go through and reinforce until you can retain it.